Hey guys, AJ Adkins with Dawn Equipment. Want to take a couple minutes today to talk to you about some of the new features on our row units, our strip till units that we have. We will be having these row units at some upcoming conferences, some of the upcoming shows. So we're excited to have them there and then also to see you guys there. We'll be at the Strip Till conference next month in August, and then we'll also be at Farm Progress later that month. So we're excited to have the row units there. Farm Progress will actually have a couple complete toolbars there, toolbars that are built in-house with these row units. So we're excited about having it there and excited to see you guys. So real quickly today, briefly wanted to go through the row unit and kind of, this is the traditional Pluribus row unit that we're used to, that we've had in the past. It's a 3-coulter system. It's got the front lead coulter on there to cut and size the residue. It's got a set of row cleaners that are actually pulled behind that, so we can really fine tune how much residue, if any residue in the strip. One nice feature on strip till versus conventional till versus vertical till, any of the other tillage practices, is that we have the ability to till, but also get that residue out of the strip to keep it from getting mixed into that soil profile and wicking any moisture out or any agronomic disadvantages there. So it gives you that option, and we can do that from the cab. We can control how much pressure we have on that row cleaner, or if we want the row cleaner all the way up out of the way, if we're going into a situation where there's not a lot of residue and we don't want to worry about disturbing too much of that soil, we can lift that row cleaner straight up out of there. So as we move on back, we've got the 2 coulter combinations. This is the simple basic system that we've had in the past. This is a cast arm. So with that, it allows us to run these rear coulters angled in and also under the soil. So that's really what sets the Pluribus apart from other coulter style strip till units. We're able to get in and lift that soil with, that vertical, that side to side, but then also lifting from underneath at that higher speed. When we get into a tighter soil, whether it's a clay or whether it's an indrow or just wheel track or something like that in that compacted soil, that's really what sets us apart, is the ability to have those coulters on an angle and be able to lift it and throw it up in the air. So at that speed, we're gonna run and lift the soil up in the air. And we're gonna use the deflecting shield in the back to direct that soil back into these finger tines that we have on the gauge wheel system. So these 2 rear tires in the back, that's what's setting our depth. So moving the gauge wheel up or down is gonna allow the unit to get deeper or allow the unit to get shallower. So that's kind of that basic simplified version of the Pluribus row unit. That's what we've always offered. We also have the fertilizer tubes on these stands. This is our dry fertilizer tube that's dumping right in from the top into that strip, so it's going to mix into that soil profile, so it allows us to not have any hot spots that blend through the entire profile, so we can run at that higher speed and also not have to run a diffuser on there where we have that choke point. This one also has the liquid tubes. I've got one on this side and one on the other side. It sits right behind that casting, so it does not engage the soil at all. So one nice thing about that is that tube is not wearing out. It's not something you have to replace all the time, but it does tuck in right behind that blade. So right in the shadow of that coulter, it allows me to get some fertilizer in there, a liquid fertilizer. A lot of guys are running like a 28% or a 32% with the thiosulfate mixed in and incorporated, or mixed it on the outside edge and not into the strip at all. So we can run that as more of like a 2x2 system like you have on your planter. The big thing with the strip till unit is getting that planter moving. So if we can get a little bit of fertilizer off the planter, and we are making that pass in the spring just ahead of the planter, we very easily can get some fertilizer through this unit and then alleviate how much load we have on the planter. As we move forward on this row unit, you see this is our new feature on this. The Pluribus row unit we've had out since early 2020, 2021. We've been working on it. It's been an airbag system in the past, and it works very well in the spring and in some fall conditions. When we get out in the fall like we had here's in the past couple years, very dry fall, very compacted. We have a hard time getting that into the soil, into that clay. So we've added that hydraulic feature. So we've got up to 3,000 PSI of hydraulic pressure to be able to push that row unit in the ground. So with that pressure that we can push in the ground, we also have the uplift capability. So this row unit can get in the ground. We can run this row unit at max depth at about 6.5 inches. That same row unit, I can come back in the spring and I can take all the weight off of that row unit. So the row unit weighs about 550 pounds. I can take all the weight off of that row unit, put it back on the toolbar frame, and I can use this very easily as a freshener unit, or I can use it as a unit in the spring when we're getting out there in kind of a wetter soil, kind of a muckier type soil where the row unit wants to just bury itself. I can actually float that unit and give me that versatility that I need from one field to the next. With the hydraulic down pressure, we also have incorporated that into our row cleaners. So these are cab controlled row cleaners, and they're hydraulically controlled with the same hydraulics that we get from the tractor on our down pressure system. So this is the Pluribus. Like I said, we've had this in the past. It's worked very well. for us in the past as far as residue flow between the rows, as far as soil flow through the unit. When we do get into kind of that wetter soil, kind of that muckier soil where it wants to stick to everything, we don't have those choke points in here. So it does tend to flow very well through the unit. This unit, you're going to be running at that speed, probably in that 8 to 10 mile per hour range. We want some speed on that. Horsepower requirements are going to be, with the airbag setup, we're in that 12 to 15 horsepower per row with the hydraulic down pressure. Because I have that capability of really pushing this row unit in the ground, I want to be closer to that 20, 22 horsepower per row. Again, this is the Pluribus row unit. This is the exact same row unit as far as the subframe fixture. So we've got the same parallel arms, we've got the same subframe, a lot of the same components as our previous, the Coulter style row unit. But as you can see, we added a knife to this row unit. So a lot of guys have reached out to us in the past. They like our row unit, they like the quality of our material, the bearings that we use. They like working with us. One bad thing that we had is that we didn't have an option for anhydrous. So we listened to you guys. We know that a lot of guys are still wanting to use anhydrous in certain fields and certain conditions. So we gave you that option. We've taken the traditional row unit that we had before with the Coulters, and we've modified it. We've put attachments onto it so we can put a knife on there. So that nice thing means that we can run a knife in the fall. We can run a knife at a later time. We want to put anhydrous on, something like that. And then we can convert that same row unit from a knife back to a Coulter if we want, or we'll have some other options in the future where we can modify that even more, make it more of a freshener strip till unit. So the big thing with this row unit is it's all modular. It's already got a lot of the holes cut out, so we can bolt a lot of different attachments onto it. So briefly, we'll talk about this setup with the knife. As you can see, this is an airbag control, so airbag down pressure, not the hydraulic pressure we had on the previous unit. That also means that we've got the same cab controlled row cleaners on the previous one. It is a pull type. This one's pinned up right now, but I have that control from the cab so I can adjust how much pressure I want on the row cleaner, but it's pneumatically controlled, so not hydraulic. So we'll have a hydraulic compressor or a 12-volt compressor on the toolbar frame to control how much down pressure we have on the airbag row unit, how much pressure we have on the row cleaners. And as we move on back, you can see we've got a mold knife built into this. So this gives us the ability to get that depth into that 7 inches, or we can shallow it up closer to 5 inches to be able to get the fertilizer, either a liquid, a dry, anhydrous, mixed down and get it incorporated to the bottom of that strip. That's been key to some guys. They really want to get that fertilizer down in the bottom. And then also we have the option, we can put it on the top and kind of blend it to the top of the profile. So it gives you a couple different options there. And then also you see, this isn't just the standard setup, which would be the shear bolt, which would just bolt to this with a shear bolt. If you don't have a lot of knives, that's a great option. It's more economical for a lot of guys. But then if you are in a lot of rocks and you don't want to be replacing, 24 shear bolts every pass, we do have the option for the air trip. Again, this is a cab controlled air trip setup. So with the down pressure, when we go in there, you can see how it kind of moves just a little bit. We've got that pressure. I can add how much PSI I want to this bag, and I've got the same one on the other side. So it's a dual acting air trip setup, and it is cab controlled. So what does that mean? That means when you're going in the field and you get into a spot where it is a little more rocky than the rest of the field, and there's not a lot of growth from the cash crop, from the corn or whatever you're stripping for in that part of the field, we can come into that and we can actually back off how much down pressure we have on that. Because a lot of guys know they're getting into that. They know if you run full down pressure on that knife and you get into the rocks, what's going to happen? It's going to be pulling all those rocks up out of the ground. A lot of guys are tired of doing that. So when you get into that pocket where there is a surplus of rocks and you don't have to go out and pick them up every season, we can back off how much down pressure we have on the airbag there. So when we do that, that knife is going to allow it to come up, float a little more, which the strip will be affected by that slightly, but we know that's also an area where we don't have a lot of growth. We don't have it's not a high yielding area, so we can still get the fertilizer down. We can still, across the rest of the toolbar, we can still get everything placed that we want to get there, but without having to worry about all these rocks getting brought up with it. So that's one nice feature that we incorporated, is that cab controlled air trip system. And then as we move on back, it gets into our containment coulters. So we've got the knife, and then we've got containment coulters tucked in really close to that knife. I know a lot of guys like that feature. They like to be able to keep everything contained. So this is going to build us a nice, 7-inch depth, and then we can get into that 10-inch wide strip when we do that. So it's going to be a nice mound, like a typical knife, a typical shank style strip. And then we've got our gauge wheels in the back. So these, again, just like our Coulter row unit, are setting our depth. So moving the gauge wheels up or moving the gauge wheels down is going to allow the unit to get deeper, allow that knife to get a little bit deeper. And again, that's adjustment that we make usually at the beginning of the season, and then we usually leave it after that. There's not a lot of adjustment field to field or anything like that. So as we're going through there, we go through the containment coulters. The gauge wheels have that tine system again, so I can really fine tune how cloudy I want the strip, how fine I want that strip. The more tines that we have on there, the finer the strip's going to be. We've got the option to take the tines off. You can order a blank disc and put that on there. So when you go out in the fall, typically in the fall we run it really pretty cloudy compared to when we run it in the spring. In the spring, that planer is going to be chasing this either that day or the next day or a week behind the strip till unit. So I want those clouds gone. I want it very fine, smooth seedbed prepped. So we've got different attachments that can make that fit your soil type. And then in the fall, we would run it again a little cloudier, a little taller berm, so it overwinters better when we get those heavy rains in the winter. So again, we're going to have these units out. We're going to have them on demo toolbars. Be happy to come out to your farm. Follow us on social media. Reach out to any of us here at the office. Give us a call at 815-899-8000. We'd be happy to come to the farm. Happy to see you. And thanks for tuning in.